My name is Mr. Cole, and every empire has a secret. Every morning, 20,000 people showed up to work and found security guards at the door. "You can't come in," they said. The building had been sealed. Overnight, everything was gone. Until that morning, Fortune magazine had named this company America's most innovative company, 7 years in a row. Harvard Business School held it up as a case study. The smartest analysts on Wall Street were all shouting, "Buy." It all felt like a dream. But behind the dream, there was a different reality. Most of the numbers were fabricated. The debts were hidden. The losses were concealed. And the people doing it were Harvard graduates, approved by the world's most prestigious auditing firm. Shares that traded at $90 collapsed to 26 cents. 20,000 people lost their jobs. Retirement accounts were wiped out overnight. And this story doesn't just belong to 2001. The same system is still running today. I'm Mr. Cole. Today, we open the Enron file. The story begins in 1985. Houston, Texas. A man named Kenneth Lay merges two small natural gas companies and creates Enron. The goal is simple: operate natural gas pipelines. A straightforward, steady business. But in 1990, everything changes. Lay brings in a young, brilliant name from McKinsey Consulting, Jeffrey Skilling, with a vision to take Enron to an entirely different level. Pay attention to this name, because this name will eventually lead to a law being passed, a law still in effect today. We'll get to that later in the video. According to Skilling, Enron shouldn't just operate pipelines. Enron should be an energy bank, a financial giant that buys and sells electricity, natural gas, even internet bandwidth, pricing them, creating derivative products. Travel light on assets, says Skilling. Ideas are worth more than anything. This vision captivates Wall Street. The late 1990s, the peak of the dot-com bubble. Everything seems possible. Enron seems possible. The stock price climbs, analysts applaud, newspaper headlines shine. Inside the company, Skilling is building his own culture. Every year he fires the bottom 10% of performers. They call it rank and yank. He had zero tolerance for even the smallest obstacle to his plan. Because of the pressure he placed on people, no one could say anything negative. They were afraid to ask questions. There was only one rule: win. Win at any cost. Enron's numbers shone every quarter. Revenues rising, profits climbing, analyst expectations being met. But how were these numbers actually being produced? At the center of it all was Andrew Fastow, Enron's chief financial officer. Fastow built an extraordinarily complex structure to push the boundaries of accounting rules. He created hundreds of special-purpose entities known as SPEs. These companies appeared independent on paper, but in reality, they were designed to carry Enron's debts and losses. Do you think companies like this still exist today? Let us know in the comments. The logic worked like this. Enron sells an asset at a profit. The sale revenue goes onto the balance sheet, but the asset actually passes to an SPE under Enron's control. The debt disappears. The loss disappears. Only the profit is visible. Accountants called this mark-to-market accounting, recording estimated future profits that hadn't yet been realized today. For example, Enron signs a deal to build an energy plant. The plant isn't finished yet. It hasn't produced a single kilowatt of electricity. But Enron books the estimated profits that plant will generate over the next 20 years onto its balance sheet today. And who audits these numbers? Arthur Andersen, one of the world's largest and most prestigious auditing firms. What would later come to light? Arthur Andersen was receiving $52 million per year from Enron in audit and consulting fees. The line between auditor and audited had quietly dissolved under the flow of money. Did you notice that? We saw the same thing with Madoff. When the oversight mechanism collapses, or when no real oversight mechanism is built, a lie can grow indefinitely. until someone on the right side steps in. 2000 to 2001. California is struggling with an energy crisis. Power outages last for months. Hospitals switch to generators, schools close, businesses shut down. The state declares a state of emergency. And right in the middle of this crisis, Enron's energy traders are talking among themselves. These conversations would later enter court records. One trader asks another, "Why are prices so high?" The answer comes back, "Because we want them to be." Enron's traders were manipulating California's electricity supply. They were deliberately taking plants offline under the pretext of maintenance. During peak demand hours, they were shipping electricity to neighboring states and selling it back. They were artificially driving prices upward. This was just one piece of the system they had built. The extra bill California paid during this crisis, approximately $30 billion. In the recorded conversations, the traders gave these operations names: Death Star, Fat Boy, Ricochet. Do you know what they felt when they were caught? Nothing. They were playing a game, making money. On the other side were 35 million Californians. At the start of 2001, Enron shares were still trading above $80. Inside the company, however, the picture was very different. The executives who understood where things were headed had begun making their moves one by one. Skilling and other top executives were selling their shares. Quietly, but systematically. Skilling sold approximately $60 million worth of shares in 2001. Ken Lay cashed out more than $300 million in shares over the years. Fasto transferred $30 million personally through the SPE structures he had built. During this same period, employees were being told, "Trust Enron, hold your shares, our future is bright." Retirement funds were locked into Enron stock. Even employees who wanted to sell couldn't do so during certain periods. While executives were getting out, employees were being forced to stay in. In August 2001, Skilling resigned from the CEO position without giving any reason. "Personal reasons," he said. The share price began to fall. Analysts began asking questions, and a name that had been silent until now decided to speak up. Sharon Watkins, one of Enron's vice presidents, wrote a letter to Ken Lay. She laid out clearly how fragile the accounting structures were, how the company was drowning in an accounting scandal. Lay read the letter. He referred it to the legal team, and the legal team told Lay, "We can't find a legal way to fire Watkins." The letter went in the trash. October 2001. Enron announced its third quarter results, far below expectations, and for the first time, it admitted publicly. There was a $1.2 billion write-down stemming from the SPE structures. Wall Street's reaction was immediate. The share price halved within days. The SEC launched an investigation. Banks cut credit lines. Credit rating agencies downgraded Enron to junk status. Rival energy company Dynegy considered acquiring Enron. Negotiations began, but as Dynegy's team looked deeper into the books, they recoiled at what they found. The deal collapsed, and that collapse was the final blow for Enron. December 2, 2001, Enron filed for bankruptcy with $63.4 billion in assets. It was the largest corporate bankruptcy in history up to that point. 20,000 employees lost their jobs. Thousands lost their entire retirement savings. Portfolios worth $90 per share became worth 26 cents per share. And Arthur Andersen, an 89-year-old prestigious auditing firm, faced prosecution for destroying Enron documents. It was convicted in 2002. Along with its 28,000 employees, it was buried in the dustbin of history. One scandal had swallowed two giant companies at once. Skilling was convicted in 2006, 24 years in prison. Fasto received 6 years. Ken Lay died of a heart attack while the trial was ongoing in 2006 before his sentence was announced. Skilling's sentence was later reduced to 14 years, and he was released in 2019. Legal proceedings, appeals, settlements. In the end, the punishment he received bore no proportion to the damage he caused. For the employees, the picture was different. Years of legal battles began over the losses in retirement funds. The team managing Enron's bankruptcy proceedings ultimately managed to repay creditors approximately 20 cents on the dollar. 20 cents. The one concrete legacy of the scandal was the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, passed in 2002. This law, which requires company executives to bear personal responsibility for financial statements, is still in effect today. The most important lesson from the destruction Enron spread was crystallized in this law, but the price of that lesson was paid with the lives of tens of thousands of people. What do we learn from this story? Enron's collapse was not the story of one person's betrayal. It was the betrayal of a system. Executives fabricated the numbers. Auditors looked the other way. Analysts didn't ask questions. Banks kept extending credit. And the media kept presenting Fortune's Most Innovative Company Award year after year for 6 consecutive years. The vast majority of Enron's employees were honest people. They went to work in the morning, did their jobs, collected their paychecks. But the system they were part of had turned them into unwitting accomplices. The culture of pressure had made asking questions dangerous. And because it was dangerous, no one asked. Skilling had a favorite book, Richard Dawkins' The Selfish Gene. An evolutionary thesis arguing that humans are fundamentally competitive and selfish. Skilling applied this thesis to corporate culture. And what did he end up with? He was consumed by the very culture he had created. Perhaps the biggest lesson is this: no matter how brilliant a company appears, the fundamental question is always the same. Where is the money actually coming from? Do the numbers reflect reality or a version of reality? And if there's a culture that discourages asking that question, that is precisely the moment to be careful. This was RogueCapital. Every empire has a secret, and we open them. The next collapse may have already begun. Subscribe and turn on notifications to be the first to know when the next empire falls. Take care of yourself and never trust anyone or any system without doing enough research first. Goodbye.